Well, today's the 13th Sunday of the year. We're That's kind of new for us because even though on the weekdays we've been back to green vestments for a few weeks, Sundays have had all these different feasts, and but now we're solidly in the green. So you'll see green vestments and so on at Mass from now on for a while. Now, with that in mind, this 13th Sunday features a gospel of Jesus heading to Jerusalem, and he's going there for the last time to suffer and die. And whatever other journeys they had made, this one is that final one that the Synoptic Gospels focus on. All right, now, in this gospel, we find, if you will, maybe 5 disciplines of discipleship. Okay, that would be the basic focus here today. 5 disciplines of discipleship. Now, the first one is purposefulness. It says that when the days for Jesus being taken up were fulfilled, he resolutely determined to journey to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers on ahead of him. Now, there is this resolutely determined. Some of the older translations say he set his face like flint. That's a kind of a pretty good description of what that set your face like flint means. You're just resolutely determined. Nothing's gonna turn him back. All right. Now, as we know, he's heading to Jerusalem to suffer and die. And he knows his mission, and nothing's going to turn him back. Now, how about us? Are we this purposeful? I think one of the human problems that we all have is that we're not always all that purposeful. We got 1,000 things on our plate, and we're running here, running there. We're all in a big hurry. We're all in a big hurry to get there, even though we don't often know where there is. And so these are things that we struggle with. Now, on the contrary, St. Paul says, this one thing I do, I press on to the high prize marked out for me in Christ Jesus my Lord. Or again, he says, it actually was James who said, the double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And Jesus warns us, no one can serve 2 masters. But we sure do run around trying, not just to serve 2, but 52, 152, and so on. Because we've got so many things that grab our attention and want to distract us. And so this idea of resolutely being determined to head to the Jerusalem of heaven for us must be our goal. And everything we do that helps us get there is part of that. Things that don't, they're diversions. They don't help us. So again, my goal, and maybe to put it in words that I think it makes some sense for all of us, is that I want to die loving God and my neighbor, so I can go home and be with God forever, and my neighbor too. So it's a pretty succinct way to put it, but this is the goal. And how are you doing? Where are you going? You see, with your life. There's a story about Rabbi Akiva that might be handy here. Rabbi Akiva, he was walking down the Via Maris, and he's meditating on a psalm, and a Roman soldier off to the side of the road says, "Who are you and where are you going?" But he's lost in the psalm, and he doesn't really pay attention. Finally, the Roman soldier steps right in front of him and says, "Who are you and where are you going?" And Rabbi Akiva is startled. He comes out of his meditation. He says, "How much do they pay you to stand here and ask people who they are and where they're going?" And the Roman soldier said, 4 shekels. And he said, "I will pay you double if you will come to my house every morning as I'm coming out the door and ask me this question. Who are you and where are you going?" And that's a pretty important thing. The unreflective life is not worth living. And we ought to know where we're going. If you set out to drive somewhere, you have the destination in mind. Now, there might be some diversions along the way, but you know how to get right back on track, if there's a closed road or something, but you got to know where you're going. And if you don't, well, all bets are off. All right, so the first discipline of a disciple is to be purposeful, all right? And now the next thing is perseverance. You see, they tried to go to a Samaritan town as they're going through, and they don't welcome them. And the James and John are very angry about this, and want to call down lightning from heaven. And the Lord says, come on. Now, later on, he jokes about this a little bit, I think the Lord does. He says, he names them sons of thunder. And so this is kind of a tense moment, but later on they have a laugh about it. Now, but here's the idea. Look, you're going to have, and I'm going to have, trials and setbacks in life. There's obstacles. Sometimes there's ridicule. Sometimes, people become an obstacle to us. There's rejection. There can be any number of things, but sometimes they're just physical obstacles and things, and we have to have perseverance and fortitude, because we're going to experience some of these either rejections or setbacks, or we thought we had resources, or somebody couldn't come through for us after all. There's just any number of things can come up in our discipleship, and we have to just keep making the journey. See, they want to stop and call down lightning and spend time, destroying this town. And Jesus says, we got better things to do than destroy a town. So we need to persevere. We're going, and we're going to keep going where we're going. Ajik what ajis, do what you're doing. All right. So there is perseverance. So we have purposefulness and we have perseverance. Now we also see in this gospel that there is a kind of a poverty of spirit. There's a man who calls out to Jesus. He said, I'll follow you wherever you go. And maybe he's thinking, hey, this guy looks like the Messiah. He's going places. I want a place in the government. I wanted this guy to know who I am so he can reward me, when he comes into his kingdom. And so Jesus responds to him, look, he says, foxes have dens, and the birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. If you're looking for power, access, money, stuff, you're looking in the wrong place, man. I'm going to the cross. I'm not going to some palace. I'm going to the passion. And this is not what my kingship is about. It's certainly not about the meager wealth of this world. That's for sure. So again, we have to realize that being a disciple is not about, doing things that become lucrative for us. Being a disciple means that our treasure is in heaven. And to this world, we may at times be poor or at least insignificant. Big power grabs, places of honor and stuff are not necessarily for us at all. Jesus implies just the opposite: persecution, suffering, even death, and hatred from the world. So you see, the poverty of spirit is important for us, because we can't get too worked up about, well, I didn't make $1 million, but my brother did, or look here, my neighbor has a bigger house, or, forget all that. And that's not what life's about, all right? Jesus says it plainly enough. He says, man's life does not consist in his possessions, all right? So there needs to be a kind of a poverty of spirit. Now, it says here, in the next one, we'll talk about promptness, or a kind of a readiness. There's another, he says, follow me, but he says, look, let me go bury my father first, and then I'll come and follow you. And Jesus says something that shocks if you don't, really study this a bit. Let the dead bury their dead, but you come follow me. See, he's almost he's kind of annoyed here, isn't he? He has a intensity about him. Now, this idea that the man's father has just died, and he has to go, bury him. Well, look. The Greek text can be read a little differently to say, my father's getting up in years, you see, and soon enough, in the next few years, he'll probably pass. And when I'm freed and I've settled his estate and got all his affairs in order, then I'll be glad to come and follow you, you see. And you know how that goes, oh, yeah. I'll wait till I retire, and then I'll really become a church member. I'll get active and involved, and, I'll really help Father with this or that project, or, whatever. You got all these things. And then all of a sudden you retire, and you say, now I'm really tired. I'm retired. Now I'm really tired. And I can't do it. I don't have the energy. And, it's always going to be something, see, to this type of attitude. There's a kind of a sloth. To this, Jesus is summoning him to a promptness. Come now. Let the dead bury their dead. You're all wrapped up in worldly things. You got to just let all that stuff go. And let the world take care of its things. You come and follow me. See? And that's where he's persistent. So I think we can dismiss this as just a a horribly harsh thing that Jesus says, and take it in the other sense. The man's father hasn't just died. He probably wouldn't be talking to Jesus if that were the case. He'd be intensely preparing, because I tell you, in those days when a Jewish person died, they were going to be in the ground or in a cave within 24 hours, because, they didn't have all the things we have today to embalm and things. Burying people was an urgency. You're not standing around listening to a sermon or watching Jesus pass by. You're about your business. All right, now, so this is how we should understand this, but don't miss the point. The urgency of Jesus. There's a promptness. Come on, you always got some excuse. Come on now, you know better than that. You come follow me. All right, now the final one I want to talk to you about is permanence. The Lord, another man says to him, Lord, I'll follow you, but first let me go and say farewell to my family and home. And Jesus says, no one who sets his hand to the plow and keeps looking back is fit for the reign of God. Again, somewhat shocking, Doesn't Jesus want us to honor our families and, all these kinds of things? Yes. But you see, often he takes these cases that are the most, wow, that's really bold. He says, if anybody loves father, mother, son, daughter more than me, they're not worthy of me. They can't be my disciple. He goes right to the highest relationships we have in this world that are both the most necessary and the ones to whom we owe the greatest respect and reverence, namely our family relationships. And even those things do not outrank our loyalty to follow him. And yet we often let that be the case, right? And we're not, we allow a lot of stuff to go on in our families and things that we shouldn't. And we're all concerned about keeping everybody happy and not offending or upsetting. And even parents, especially these days, seem to have some kind of a weird, fear almost of their children, where they have to say, no. And if you do it, I'll punish you. But they say, oh, well, I want to be liked. So you see, these are the kinds of things Jesus is getting at, that nothing in this world, even the highest relationships, can or should take precedence to our relationship, our loyalty to him. Okay? Now, he also says here, this idea of permanence, that when we set out on this journey of discipleship, don't keep looking back. There's an image here of a plow. Now, you can almost imagine a guy's holding on to a plow, and the blade is in the ground. He's holding the handles. Now, what happens if he looks back? Well, the head bone's connected to the neck bone, and the neck bone's connected to the collarbone, and the collarbone's connected to the arm bone. So you turn and you start, and you get off. You're no longer plowing straight. You're off into a ditch. So that's the image here, and he develops it more and elsewhere. But the idea is that don't keep looking back. Maybe the Lord's called you from something, sinful lifestyle, perhaps, or certain friends that weren't helping you, or a career that was problematic. But now you've got your career. So don't keep looking back. What you want to do is keep looking forward and let the Lord lead you. But again, we tend to get nostalgic at times and these kinds of things. And look, there's a lot of good things in the past, or a lot of good friends we've had and still have. He's not saying have none of this. He's just saying that, look, when you start to follow me, whatever in your past that's no longer helping you to do that, it's got to go. And stop it, and I remember we used to have fun in the bar and we'd all be joking and laughing. Don't go back. If drinking is an issue, don't go back. Don't have fond memories of it. If you get the idea. Certain friendships or jobs or things that you used to do. There's an old spiritual that says, places I used to go, I don't go no more. Things I used to do, I don't do no more. Friends I used to have, I don't have no more. See, there's a great change come over me. And that's the old spiritual. Now, there's this call to not look back. Don't look back. And that's so. I hope that you get some of this. I can't fully develop it all in the shorter video version of these things. Even in church, I can't develop all of it. But you get the main point. There are a number of disciples or disciplines for disciples, right? And just to remind you of each of them, there is this idea of purposefulness. For Jesus set his face like flint. He's not looking back. He's looking forward. I've got this job. I'm going to go do this, and nothing's going to turn me away. He's purposeful. There's a perseverance. There's a setback. They're trying to get through a certain area, but the Samaritans won't let them. They have to divert and go around. Okay, persevere. Persevere. Whatever troubles or things come up, persevere. There is a poverty of spirit that's required. There was a man who thought, well, maybe this guy's going somewhere. He can kind of help me out here financially. And Jesus said, man, that's not why you don't follow me for money and power or access, because that's not what it's about. All right, it's not about this world. It's about the world that is to come. And then we see there's a promptness or a readiness that when he calls, even these relationships, like man has to bury his father, who probably hasn't just died, but is up in years. You can always find some reason not to follow Jesus, and they're not all evil. They're not bad things. Taking care of your father, watching his estate and affairs while he's in his dotage, okay. But you see what I'm saying? Then what the Lord is saying here is, look, there's always going to be some excuse you're going to find. Now cut that out and start to follow me. Not all of our obligations are in conflict with being a disciple, of course, you see. And then finally, there's this permanence, that is to say, don't set your hand to the plow and keep looking back to stuff I've called you away from, says the Lord, okay? And I've called you from it, just keep looking forward. All right, enough said on all these things, but for all of us, it's tough. These are not easy. We're human. We're both sinful and weak, and it's good though to look to some of these things. How am I doing with some of these things? And am I simplifying my life and making it about one thing? Am I really beginning to work at staying and persevering even despite some trials and setbacks? What do I need to work on? And that'll be a good meditation to make this week. For all of us, because it's the Word of God that's given to us for this week, the 13th week in ordinary time, back to the green. So, God bless you all. Thanks for listening, and I was away last week, but I'm back in the saddle here, and good to be back, and see you next week.